All right, welcome families and welcome to Back to School 21-22. We're so excited to see your students back in our schools. So first of all, I'd like to welcome our panelists tonight. First of all, I believe we have at least one school board director in the audience tonight, Board Director Satya Chandragiri. If there are other board members there, I apologize if I missed you. We did a quick tally today. So really a huge thanks to the leadership of our school board as they are helping us navigate what still continue to be difficult times in this pandemic. So our panelists tonight are Ethan Udosnata, who is an assistant superintendent, and I've asked them to turn on their cameras when I say their names. Olga Cobb, assistant superintendent. Chris Baldridge, our director of safety and risk management, who's also been a key leader for us in our COVID management. Jody Peterson, our coordinator of health services manager. She's also been one of the other key partners with us in our organization who have really led this work. Melissa Glover, our director of student services. Cynthia Richardson, our director of equity access and advancement, and Sandy Price, our director of school improvement. Thanks for being with us tonight. They will be here towards the end as well as we field questions. So if you have technical questions about health and safety protocols, we've got all the right people on the line today. We will, it is okay to start putting questions in the chat. We have people behind the scenes starting to sort questions for us so that when I get through the end of what is hopeful to be a short presentation tonight, you'll be able to ask your questions and see if we can get you some answers. So one thing you have to know, we are highly committed to 5 days a week of in-person instruction. And while all of us want the pandemic to end and for us to get back to what we're normal, we are committed to layers of protection so that we can have those 5 days a week of in-person instruction. Every move we make is about keeping kids in school safely. While we know that vaccinations is the most important tool in getting past the pandemic, we need to have other layers of protection because we know school is a place where we have lots of unvaccinated individuals, especially our children who are not eligible for vaccinations. The Delta variant is striking in our community. I've listened to our health professionals. I think I would be remiss if I didn't do a huge shout out to our health professionals in the community who have gotten tired in the pandemic. And I think it's on us as a community to do everything we can to slow the spread and help keep our medical hospital staff able to handle what comes their way. So a huge shout out to our health partners in our community. From our health experts, we have learned that the Delta variant is very contagious, and we have the safety protocols in place so to keep our schools open. So everything we do is about that goal of 5 days a week in-person instruction. Nobody wants to go back to hybrid or comprehensive distance learning. I know that this commitment is from the governor's office to Oregon Health Authority to Oregon Department of Ed to local districts across the state that keep our eye on the ball 5 days a week in-person instruction with the safety protocols. So as many of you have probably heard, we do have a mask mandate for K-12 schools. The original mandate stated for the school year 2021, but recently what we know is that the governor's office will review that decision every 30 days. So our hope is that the mask mandate isn't all year, but as we watch the Delta variant and see what happens with vaccinations and vaccination rate, we'll know more every 30 days, right? So while I know there are lots of feelings out there in our community, and a lot of us have this, want to have the right to choose how our kids show up in school. with or without masks. I mean, there's lots of feelings about this on both sides. What I want to encourage us as a community to do is to change our thinking just a little bit and think about how do we care and love for every community member in a way that protects the health and safety. That's part of our care and love for our community. So I want all of us to take a deep breath and to see people as people right now and know that every person has different circumstances, has different health issues, and schools are a required place for our kids. And so we don't want school students to choose to not come to school because they don't feel safe. So what I'm hopeful for is that as parents, grandparents, community members, we can teach our kids that a small sacrifice, the sacrifice of the mask, that I'm not excited to wear anyone. I just had somebody walk in my room, so I'm going to put mine back on quick. It's a little bit of a inconvenience for me on behalf of caring for health and well-being for our community. So that's how I would like to change the narrative. We know from the CDC and Oregon Health Authority, who are the health experts that I have to listen to as a school superintendent, that face coverings is another level of protection. So please, I would encourage us to start thinking about how we teach our kids to show up in kindness and caring for everyone, because there will be a few kids in our schools that aren't able to mask for a variety of reasons. We have some students with disabilities, we have some students on special 504 plans that might need an accommodation, and we have children, we have to remember, that are going to go home to intergenerational families. We have staff that go home to intergenerational families, or children that might have medical risks that can't be vaccinated yet. So I want us to think about the whole, and as part of this community health place we're in, I hate to see the fight over masking or not masking. So thanks for hanging with me around that, because I just want to go back to our goal, and our goal is to ensure that every student in Oregon is able to attend school in person every school day for the entire year. Students are required to attend school, which is a congregate setting, different than grocery stores, and the governor's made the same requirement of state employees. The other things I think I've already mentioned about the Delta variant, about 80% of the cases, schools are still mostly unvaccinated settings. We have thousands of kids age 12 and under who don't have access yet. And we know from our health experts that universal and correct face coverings can keep students in learning in person by reducing infections and quarantines, especially when paired with other layered mitigation. So I'm going to go on to some of the other mitigation factors. Here's kind of how we are looking at our mitigation factors for the school year, so you can feel safe about returning to school. So face coverings will be required indoors and on school buses. School buses is a federal requirement because they're considered transportation, just like airplanes. Face coverings won't be required outdoors. The beauty of that is a lot of us want to see faces, so our kids will be able to see faces on the playgrounds, in our fields, when they're outdoors, and when the weather's great, we'll have lots of outdoor time. There will be medical or disability accommodations on a case-by-case basis. I would say we're still waiting on the indoor athletic guidance, but what we're hearing is that we'll have some local decision-making around that. But I want us to think about, as we're watching the Olympics, what do we see? We see anybody who isn't participating has a face covering on, and we want to be able to safely allow spectators. So I can forecast for you that Spectators will need to have face coverings. Our students will at times have to have face coverings for indoor, but we're going to plan and think about that in the coming weeks. Also, in the guidance around face coverings, some other times kids won't have to wear them is eating or drinking, of course, playing a musical instrument that requires using the mouth, athletic things where, swimming, can't wear a mask in a swimming pool, water sports. If there's an event where the mask could cause strangulation, and of course, we'll have the accommodations. The other things to remember is we're going to work to have 3 feet to the greatest extent possible. We'll continue our procedures around hand washing and sanitizing stations. We also, since in the pandemic, we opened up our ventilation systems. So we have the maximum outdoor air coming into our facilities. Last year, we started that right before the wildfires. So of course, about that time we had smoke in the valley, but we have kept with the protocol of keeping the outdoor air coming into our buildings. We know that's an important layer of protection. Our custodial staff will continue cleaning our buildings and disinfecting as per our daily protocols and the high touch surface areas. And just a reminder, this is not from me, this is from our health authorities who have gone to school to advise us in this way. Vaccination is recommended as the #1 option to end the pandemic. I have received questions about are we requiring vaccinations? There isn't any statewide effort right now to require vaccinations for either our students or employees. So I don't know what that means in the coming weeks, but right now there is no requirement. We do know that other vaccinations are required, but so far the COVID one is not. And we will continue to partner with our health agencies to provide access to vaccination clinics. So we've seen them at Washington, at Four Corners. I think there was one at McKay. We will continue to do that. Marion County and Polk County Public Health have been incredible partners in our efforts, in the community's efforts for vaccinations. I'm trying to make myself slow just a little bit. I want to apologize to my interpreters who are on the other channels. For some of them, it's really hard if I go too fast. So I'm going to try to slow down just a little bit. I think the sports I've talked about a little bit already. I think this is where we'll land. I know the outdoors will be good without face coverings. That indoor is the one that's going to evolve because what we've learned in this pandemic is that every day we get greater and greater clarity on what we need to do. So we'll continue to finalize the athletic guidance as well. High on our minds is when kids are doing really rigorous activity, and having a face covering on during rigorous activity we know can be a challenge. So we're going to take all that into consideration. One thing to note is that part of this kids in school for 5 days a week of in-person instruction and keeping them in school, we know we'll have some quarantining that needs to happen. But if students are 3 feet apart or even a little bit closer for more than 15 minutes and have on a face covering, then there isn't the requirement to quarantine. So they're really seeing that the face covering helps the spread. So we'll have fewer kids out because we've had to quarantine because of an exposure. So this will really help us on our buses. It will help us in if there's been exposure in a classroom, because what we saw a little bit of was we'd get our kids to school and then they'd have to be sent home. And I know that for families that are working and trying to manage work outside of home, that is really hard. So our ability to have everyone masked, lots of layers of protection, helps us get kids to school 5 days a week, full time, in person, and keep them in school. So that's our goal. And I think it needs to be our highest goal. And I know that every single family wants the same thing. We've watched our families really step up in distance learning and in hybrid, but we all know consistency of schooling and care is so important. So where we'll head from here is we are going to begin to do some questions and answers of our panelists. And we will have another more communication events like this. We thought we could launch with where we were at this time, begin to collect your questions and concerns so we can come back in a couple weeks with more detailed information. I think my number one takeaway for you for tonight would be our goal is 5 days a week in-person instruction. We want all of our kids back. We've proven we can do it successfully. And we know that with the layers of protection, we can do this and we're gonna have a great school year. So with that, I am gonna ask our Q&A people behind the scenes, if you would, and I think we could stop sharing the PowerPoint, Jordan. A huge shout out to our comms team for organizing this. And if we could begin for our panelists behind the scenes, asking some questions of our panelists tonight.
Christy and all, I have a question for Melissa Glover, who's our Director of Special Services. There were several questions about accommodations for students who have special needs or on IEPs, where masks may interfere with their accommodations or their ability to learn. Ms. Glover, can you respond to that? Or Director Glover, can you respond to that?
Sure. So we learned a lot last year when we started bringing students back in person. And we know that we have a number of students that just by nature of the disability either struggle to wear it, can't wear it, or shouldn't wear it if it's a health related reason. And so the process starts at the IEP, but the teams have a number of different ideas around accommodations. We were able to get pretty creative last year in some ways related to different types of coverings, distancing, just some goals and instruction. But the IEP team will come up with the accommodations specific to why the student can't or shouldn't be wearing one. I did see a question about will they be excluded, and they will not be excluded from class or from school in any way if they can't wear a mask as a result of the disability. So the process starts with an IEP team. It's easy to give the school a call, reach out and say, I'd like to schedule an IEP meeting just to talk about the accommodations that might be available. And we definitely have a long list of ideas just entirely based on the student. And so that's where it would start, and we can make it happen, but your child will be able to be in school and we will be able to figure it out and support them.
Melissa, one follow-up question. Mm-hmm. We already did some of that last year in hybrid, so we've already made some of these accommodations and know how to do it.
Yeah, we've started collecting ideas from schools that they found that worked really well with students, so that we can share across schools the different things that have worked, so that IEP teams have a number of different ideas to consider just based on the student and the age and the setting and all of that.
If a student already had an accommodation last year related to face coverings, would they need to request again?
No, it's a great question. So it should still be documented in the IEP. So it wouldn't need to be, they wouldn't need to convene a new team. Whatever accommodations were set up last year will still be in place.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question for maybe Chris Baldridge. This is around school buses and the requirements that we will put in place, or the protocols that we will put in place to transport our student. Are we limiting bus capacity? Are we maintaining social distance? Are we requiring masks? Are we keeping windows open? Just some information around transportation.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'll ask Jody to turn on her camera to help answer this one as well. So you have to look at the bus as a different space. So yes, we will absolutely have the windows down. We'll be moving as much air across. Students will also be required to wear face coverings while they're on the bus. There is some distancing requirements in there as well. And maybe Jody could talk about those, as well as the bus is a unique space, right? With the high back seats, and there's individual barriers built inside of there. The one thing that is a positive change here. So from last year's rules, we had numerous bus riders quarantined as a result of a positive COVID-19 case on a bus trip. This year, we actually get to look at the illness on the bus. So we'll actually examine where the child was sitting, how close they were to those, and then it will only affect those in that close proximity to the child on the bus. And then we'll examine, or we'll continue to watch that bus cohort as well for additional illness. We're lucky in Salem-Keizer that we're supported by a very an amazing group of registered nurses, school nurses, and their care and connection and how they've handled COVID and the way that they do it on an individual basis, I think is unmatched. And so they'll do that with the buses as well. So we will continue watching those buses. And as COVID comes onto the bus, we'll identify the case, identify anyone in close proximity, work with those families. And of course, if we see additional illness on the bus, then we'll introduce additional mitigating strategies. So it could be additional cleanings. We could, potentially limit the amount of kids that are traveling on that bus route until we get things back under control. Jody, was that decent?
Great job. Yes, the close contact is now at 3 feet or as close as possible, and with the face covering. And that distance, we actually don't have to consider a close contact. So that is new information than what we dealt with when we were in hybrid. So just really know that the close contact information will be a little bit different, but we have very great strategies to make sure that we mitigate illness in our buildings and keep an eye on when we do have one case or multiple.
Can I ask a follow-up just to be sure that I really understand? If I have my face covering on and I'm on the bus 3 feet, or even we get, I with my seat partner get a little too close and I'm exposed, would I have to quarantine?
So
if you're fully vaccinated and it's been 14 days, you do not have to quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And the vaccines are for 12 and older. And please reach out to your doctor if you'd like to learn more about vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in the age group where vaccines are not yet available, you would not have to quarantine. If we do see additional illness or spread of illness, we might reevaluate that.
Mm-hmm.
But currently with our new guidelines, we're really excited that we found that we can get closer together.
Yeah, and it's the face covering that makes the difference on quarantining in that
Correct.
example. Yeah, and if I could get our panelists to slow down just a little bit when you're talking.
Sorry.
I've got a message in the chat to ask you very politely to do that.
Christy, this is Ethan Udos-Nata. I have a question about lunches. What will be the protocol for lunches? Will students be able to eat in cafeterias? How will they distance? What will be the rules about masking during lunches as well? And Chris Baldridge, Director of Safety and Risk, please feel free to provide a response as well.
Would you like to start, Chris?
Sure. We're going to have a regular lunch schedule. So there's, unlike last year where we had only half of our school populations and we have our whole school populations. And so what we've done is we've asked schools to create a lunch schedule that works with them. So create basically as many lunches as you can. But we're going to have to bring kids and have them eat, and then do your best at distancing. Obviously, you can't eat with a face covering on. So what we've guided our staff, as well as our kids, is that, as you eat, you can do simple things like take the face covering off, take a bite, potentially put it back on, depending on the age of the kid. But regardless, what we have is that team that we talked about before, and we do something unique in Salem-Keizer that other districts around the state are not doing, and that we do individual contact tracing within our own house. And so what we can do is we can talk to your student and say, who did you sit next to at lunch? And they have great recall. And then we also talk to the staff who are in the building, hey, who was seated here? And then we can contact trace there and start looking at the affected individuals who are in the lunch program at the time.
Thank you.
Waiting for translations to give him a little time.
Yeah, let's give them a breath.
Was that better? I tried to slow down. I'm so sorry.
Better.
Okay.
Yes. Chris and Jody, do you have any idea of when vaccines will be available for 12-year-olds and younger? Do you know anything, or have you heard anything new?
Great question. Actually, from the county today, we heard that Pfizer is looking at some information to start this fall, hopefully September, October-ish, to move from 5 to 12. We get the 5 to 11-year-olds, excuse me. 12 is already approved. We don't know for sure, and things can change. And there has been trials going on for long periods of time. So it's not quite there yet, but.
Next question.
Eat on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi there. This question is for Superintendent Perry. What will be the policy or the decision for athletics indoors during the fall, especially for sports like volleyball?
Mhm. Yeah. We're working on some final decision-making around what volleyball specifically. We're super thankful we're starting in the fall with lots of outdoors. We do believe that we'll definitely need to have spectators with face coverings, because we want to allow spectators in. So that's really important to us, that families get to watch their kids. And then we're thinking about, are there places and time our athletes can not be masked, like for rigorous activity conditioning. But we're studying that in the coming weeks, and we'll come out with what our decision making is on that. And the goal is to keep our athletes on the court playing, not sick, and to have a strong season. We know our kids have missed a lot of athletics. We know that contributes, not missing, but strong athletic participation helps us with stronger mental health. And so we want to really focus on doing everything we can as far as being sure that our kids can play this year. So that's why we're thinking deeply as far as indoors about, spectators masked, referees, anyone who isn't in the game masked, and then where are the places we can allow our kids to unmask for a portion of that. Hopefully within the next 5 to 10 days, we'll have some clarity on that.
Okay, we have a next question. And this is a general question, Chris, about safety protocols for elementary schools. Other than masks, what should parents expect for safety at elementary?
Sticking on the COVID questions, is that where we're at? So some things that will look differently. Obviously, it'll look like their original classroom, which I think is a positive. It's with the 3 foot of spacing. Outside of that, it should look. Did we use the word normal earlier, Superintendent? It should look somewhat normal. The kids are going to be able to move, go out, have recess, and then of course the face covering is not required at recess, so you'll have a full recess. They'll have a full lunch hour. It's just when we get inside of those more confined spaces where our air is not moving quite as well, as where we need to make sure that they're doing a great job of wearing those face coverings. So we're going to, I guess, still do all the frequent hand washing, really focusing on soap and water, and making sure kiddos are keeping their hands clean. I think that's
clean
about all I'm
hands,
coming up with.
yeah, clean hands, face coverings, 3 feet to the greatest extent possible. Stay home if you're sick.
Yes.
And then because we want it to be back to school as we used to know it. A little, trying to have a little more, less clutter in classrooms so kids can be spaced 3 feet, some of those things, but we want kids to come back into the schools and see a classroom. And again, 100% face coverings, anytime we're not eating, drinking inside the building, because we know that is one important protective factor. So that will be the thing that looks the most different. But I'll tell you, our kids, I've been out in summer schools. I was out during hybrid, and our kids are used to this. Every now and then they forget, and then somebody says, put up your face covering, and they do. I think for that, it will be, won't be as hard for kids because they've seen that already in a school with hybrid and in our summer programs across every summer program.
I am seeing many questions in the chat related to EDGE enrollment.
Mhm. Yeah.
For those that are listening, EDGE is our guided online program. So what will be the, do we have an enrollment cap? And if so, will we be changing that? What's the thinking behind EDGE and families having access?
So EDGE enrollment, we opened and we're very public about our enrollment window last spring. We opened it up and we kept it open longer to be sure families really knew, with the goal of coming back in person. And right now, EDGE is still accepting enrollment, but there's mostly a waiting list. But if you are really interested in our online academy, I would say please to go ahead and enroll. The difficulty will be if the face covering guidelines change in 30 days, and that's your only reason for wanting EDGE, we won't be able to transfer back until a natural break in time. So the semester or reporting period, we'll identify those. So think carefully about if you really want a semester or full year of online learning, regardless of how things change in brick and mortar, definitely then sign up for EDGE. Again, we're at the waiting list place right now, but they've already looked at that by grade level. They'll know when they can open that up. And the bigger issue is if we raise the cap, it also then means transferring staff. And last year, the way the enrollment really escalated in August for all the reasons of what we knew about how we were starting school, we had a huge transfer of staff. And so then it causes every school in the district and staffing challenges for us. So we had to set a number. We purposefully set that high so we'd have this little tiny bit of wiggle room at this moment in time, because we knew we'd have families that would want to make different decisions.
We have questions in the chat about start and end times for school. So maybe we can put in the chat the resource with school schedules. And we also have questions about start of school, the dates that school starts: September 6th for 6th graders and 9th graders, September 7th for all other grades in elementary and secondary, and September 15th for kindergarten. And we will make sure to put all of these dates up in our websites and also in the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, you should see a couple of those things coming through the answer in the chat, and then we'll get them up on the website. For our rooms that are in other languages, we'll post them in multiple languages on our website as well. And also, I think one of the things we want everyone to know, it would be easy for us to collectively, the collective us, district, community, to come back into school and immediately begin on academics. But we know what we will get to academics, but the care and connection of our kids coming back. We have kindergartners who have never stepped foot. We have first graders who barely step foot in buildings. my favorite story from last year in hybrid, not favorite, the saddest story was when a student walked in and was, wow, the school is this big and will we be in our Zoom rooms here? So this was a first grader who hadn't been in a school building yet. And he was very enthralled by the library, especially. So we're going to take extra special care as kids come back in to help them have care and connection with us, some social time with friends, all of the things that I think our kids missed in the pandemic as we start back to school and then begin the really important job of teaching kids to read, write, do math, be ready for college. So know that coming in, we will pay close attention to the social needs of our kids. Other questions, Olga?
Yes. Are parents allowed to volunteer in schools? Is this something we will consider again this year?
Yeah, we're going to start this school year. Okay, again, remember, keeping kids in school 5 days a week, our most important goal. So we're going to start the school year allowing very limited visitors and volunteers from the start, but that's not a forever thing. We just got to get ourselves on the ground and make sure we've got all the safety protocols in place. And then we'll start, fingers crossed, with the pandemic to find ways to loosen up. If a family, though, needs a parent-teacher conference, in-person IEP meeting, any of that, we will definitely, any in-person needs related to our students' academics, definitely will do that. The other thing we're encouraging our schools to do is we know that sometimes virtual meetings with parents was easier and work better with their schedule. So we're thinking about how do we offer both to our families to make it easier for families one way or the other. So initially fairly tight on extra adults in the school because we want safe protections for everyone within the school building, and then to figure out how we can safely open up to our volunteers, because we also know that you are our greatest asset in our classrooms and to help us with school things. So we'll keep working that. Olga Cobb is our assistant superintendent and supervises the elementary programs. And I know that on her mind and on the minds of our elementary directors and elementary principals will be, how can we begin that next step of normal, which is allowing help in our classrooms from our volunteers.
Christy, I do have an easy question, but it's been asked a couple of times. Will there be clubs and extracurricular available?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, clubs and extracurricular, we know is the things that really keeps kids engaged in school and lots of places. So the shorter answer is yes. Our commitment is 5 days a week of full person instruction and clubs, extracurricular activities to the greatest extent possible. From the athletics and activities side of thing, I haven't seen anything that would close down athletics again. Music, our music competitions last year, some of those performances, I haven't seen any, I've only seen commitment to having those things continue, both from the state level and of course from our level. So we want to get back to the return to school that looks like school. So, and we know those things are really critically important.
I have a question for Jody. Jody, do we have any more guidance on pre-K?
Mm-hmm.
Requirements for pre-K?
Yes, well, we learned recently that face coverings were recommended for 2 and older. What that looks like for pre-K and how that's going to go about is with grace and kindness and teaching and modeling with safety of the utmost importance. We want to keep kids safe by not wearing face coverings when they sleep, when they're not, definitely when they're with an adult. And this will be education that we will work with. This guidance just came out, and I know the child development will be working on guidance as well. So this is new. But I do know some of the pre-K students have done this throughout by choice. Not all, but know that this guidance came new to us when it came new to you guys. And we will work through that guidance as it becomes more available and with our pre-K sites.
And we might be able to, as soon as we get all the way through our early learning and preschool guidance, do a similar session like this just for our preschool families. I think that might be great so they can know what to expect. And we'll help facilitate that with our coordinator of early learning, which is Stephanie Wetzel.
I have a question for Safety and Risk Director Chris Baldridge. Can you explain how we can provide 3 feet of distancing within a classroom? Some parents are concerned that it would be overcrowded. I remember last year we were at 6 feet of social or physical distance.
No problem. So we began this kind of looking at and forecasting where we thought we might be going in the late spring last year. And so what we did is a team of district folks who navigate these strategies. We met up at schools, and we went into our newest schools, and we went into some of our oldest schools, and we set up mock classrooms. And so, you know, the nice thing about our schools, and a lot of them, you have things like 12 by 12 square tiles. We have markers down on the floors in certain areas. And then as educators, you have your teachers are great at coming up with devices to determine 3 feet. Like an outstretched arm, about the length of your arm, is about 3 feet. And we teach kids this, and we stay away. And I've got to be real honest with you that 3 feet is relatively close to a person. It's kind of in that social, that bubble space for you. So really getting inside of there is something that's kind of easily avoidable just through kind of natural behavior, if you will. But outside of that, we'll teach kids how to, you know, here's a good measurement to use, your arm spacing. And then of course, we'll have our desks set up and our classroom set up with that spacing built in mind.
We have a couple of questions about testing in school. Will testing be available in school, and how will that be handled, Jody?
So there's multiple types of testing. Are you talking about COVID testing? Sorry, I went on to state testing.
COVID.
Never
testing.
mind. I went academic for a moment. COVID testing. Let's hand that to Jody.
Yes.
Actually, I was thinking the same thing, and I was like, I don't know. So COVID testing, we had when we were in hybrid. COVID testing is available on site for students or staff who are symptomatic or ill. Again, remember, don't send your student to school sick, and employees, please don't come to work sick. But there is COVID testing available for the student population. It does require consent. It will never be done without the guardian's consent. So know that we will be in communication with you, and it will be done by our health services team. And we can have conversations about all the questions you have and give you appropriate answers and what your next steps are. So available, but also a controlled environment for you.
I have a follow-up question for Jody Peterson. What will so a parent asks, will I be contacted if another student in my child's class has COVID-19? What are the parameters of being notified? Is it only if they're within 3 feet?
Great question. So as our guidance changed, we're not going to change on our standards. So if your child was in close contact with somebody that had tested positive, you will get direct contact by a nurse with a phone call. If your class, and those students would be considered exposure, and then we would tell you the plan. If your student was just in the same classroom and not exposure, we will give you the information on that as well. We are still looking at, we got feedback that the overall building communication sometimes was confusing for families, and we're taking that into consideration. But you will definitely be notified if your student was exposed by a phone call, and your classroom if there was in the class. And then if there's any such outbreak in a school, we will definitely be notifying you. And an outbreak is considered 2 or more cases in the same area. So for example, if you have 1 case in 1st grade and 1 case in 5th grade, and there is no close contact or correlation to those 2 cases, those are different cases. But if you have 2 students in the same classroom testing positive and they were in close contact, that's considered an outbreak 2 or more. And we take that into consideration and seriousness for even 1 case for any communicable disease.
A question, Christy, that goes a little bit, that is not COVID related. Are we still going to use Chromebooks in schools?
Yeah, I know our director of technology is on the line, so hopefully I'm going to speak about this correctly, but our goal is to still have Chromebooks for your kids to take home. There will be some places where we have carts of Chromebooks in schools, but and Bob, can you just, if you're still there, am I on the right track with this answer? We've made this decision multiple months ago.
Yes, we'll still have Chromebooks available for all students and families that need them.
And
To take home, correct?
For 3 through 12, and we'll release information on our K2 plans later in the fall.
Yeah, thank you.
And then from the instructional side, I wanted to add that we learned through these last year that we could enhance instruction through use of technology. And so that's one of the things that we want to keep of all the things we learned about distance learning. We know that our students can do great things with a good use of technology to enhance instruction. And so we're looking forward to continue exploring that as a tool for learning, for teaching and learning.
Are we keeping Seesaw, Canvas as our learning management systems for Olga or Ethan?
Yes, we are. We are keeping them and helping students just stay connected, just again, as a platform for them to do assignments and do some of the tasks that they're going to have in the classroom.
Thank you.
We will continue to use Canvas at the secondary level as well. That's 6th through 12th grade. I have a question. It's I think a fairly, it was asked many times about lockers. Chris Baldridge, will we be using lockers at the middle school and high school?
Yes.
And I think our students at North haven't even been able to use their new lockers yet. But North especially, you have not, if you've not used them yet, it's awesome.
So, and I guess to expand a little bit, Ethan, where we would have to get creative, and it's easily done, is if there's a locker partner, then we'll have to navigate that with the schools, but we can do that individually.
Another question around COVID procedures. When students arrive to school, are we changing our stance on temperature checks or attestation forms?
So temperature checks are not required unless a student or staff member feels ill. So if they need assistance, we will do temperatures, or if they're not feeling well. Pre-K did have a different set of guidance. So you might be coming from a pre-K area. And again, their guidance is just coming out. And so we will let you know as soon as we know about daily temperature checks, but they are not required for K-12.
Will music and PE be offered? I'm not sure if we covered that.
Yes, music and PE will be offered, including instrumental music at the elementary, choir. We'll trying to go back to as many activities as possible, K-12.
Will students be required to get a vaccination if it's available?
We have not seen any move to require vaccinations at this point for students. I do not know where the state will head with that, but right now it's not a requirement for vaccinations for students. We have other required vaccinations for school entry and staying in school, but, and Jody, have you seen anything on that at all?
School vaccine, routine pediatric vaccines are still required, and
Mhm.
school exclusion is in February. So we still have students that last year might not have got up to date on vaccines. And so remember to reach out to your primary care provider or anything like that, because you might still be behind from last year. You haven't come in, and then remembering that school exclusion is again happening this year. I missed the first part if it was
Yeah.
related to COVID vaccine.
Yeah, COVID vaccinations are not on the required
Yes.
list.
COVID vaccines are not on the required list.
Yeah.
Highly recommended, not required. And right currently, again, they're for 12 and older. And please reach out to your doctor to learn more about them and the questions you have.
Chris, we have some questions about face shields and face coverings.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between those and what will required for schools?
Yeah, you bet. So a face covering is, for us, by our definition, is a cloth barrier. 2 layers of fabric at a minimum specifically is what we like to see. Something that hooks behind the ears, and so it doesn't have to be handled, and it fits well over the nose and over the mouth, so it generally goes below the chin. A face covering is a plastic shield that goes over just the face and the eyes. So a face shield, while they can be used, you'll have to have an exemption, and we can help you with at your local school with that. But know that usually it always requires some type of medical exemption. So you'll have to provide us with some type of note from the doctor that says that my child can't wear a face covering because of A, B, or C, and the doctor's recommending we move to a face shield. You can wear a face shield in addition to your face covering. That's a choice if you choose to make that, but the face covering is what is required. Us in safety and risk management, we help schools almost daily during regular school, trying to determine if a face covering is an effective face covering. So we know there's a lot of mesh things out there and different options for those. And if we come across a face covering that we feel is not doing what we need it to do, we have the school reach out to the family and have individual conversations and just have it at that lower level, if you will, that one-to-one communication. And then of course we have all of those available on site at school as well. So we have paper face coverings that are available for kiddos. Should they forget it, not have one available to them. So.
All right, we're at 7 o'clock and we promised you to be fairly prompt in our 6 to 7 p.m. time. We're hosting another identical session on Friday night. And then Saturday, we'll launch a survey to say what additional questions and concerns do you have about back to school. And then we're going to come back out with some more communication sessions like this for throughout, for back to school. The other thing I would like to request of participants right now, and if you could put this in the chat, just a quick little, is this format a helpful format? We've talked about having some ongoing chats with the superintendent type format throughout the year. And we would be interested in some feedback on that. It's really important that we're accessible to a variety of audiences as well. We're picking up some additional languages on Friday night so that we can have another set of language needs that we meet on Friday night. So if you'd put some comments in the chat on that, and then look for our survey that will be launched this weekend with some additional questions and concerns about back to school. I really appreciate the way families that have been on tonight are asking the critical health and safety questions, because as we know, we're all excited to get our kids back in school, but we want to be sure it's done safely. So know our commitment, our highest goal, 5 days a week of in-person instruction, getting kids in school, keeping them in school, and getting through this Delta variant in a safe way. Thank you for you as families who love and care on our kids and care about the health and safety of all of the kids and their loved ones in our community. With that, have a great night, and we will hopefully see you again soon.